Now then, Vinyl Monkey here again. This is a vinyl monkey with a real monkey on his back. I've been carrying this monkey on my back for 3 weeks now. It's called Van, not Van Morrison, but Van de Graaf generator. And I've mentioned before on this channel, I've agreed, probably foolishly, to a request from a friend who's a real Van de Graaf generator, Peter Hammill nut, knows everything about them. I've agreed to, he's agreed to lend me all his records and asked me to review them. Well, anyway, so I've listened to nothing else but the last 3 weeks. But Van de Graaf generator and Peter Hammill, I've got all his material, 16 albums and a single and CDs with outtakes and all sorts of things, from the period when they were formed in '69 through to when they broke up for, not quite the last time because they reformed again in the 2000s, but when they broke up towards the end of the 70s. So I've got to get cracking because I've only got 20 minutes and there's a lot of stuff here. But I'm going to just, I'll apologise for having to refer to notes because this is really difficult stuff for me. It's quite, this is probably the hardest task. And first of all, apologies to anyone who's clicked onto this channel because they're a real Van de Graaf generator Peter Hammill fan. This is probably not for you. You won't learn anything new. This is a bloke who I've never listened to them since the early 70s when I decided it wasn't my cup of tea. And I only have one Peter Hammill solo album, which I've got to admit I don't listen to that often. So I'm not at all familiar, and there's probably 2 good reasons why I'm just not a good person to be reviewing Van de Graaf generator. But I agreed to do it, and so I'm going to give it a go. And hopefully it might be of some interest to anyone who's sort of new to the band. Put me glasses on so I can read my own notes. But yeah, why am I not the best person to review them? Well, first of all, total lack of familiarity. And this is not easy listening. It's lyrically intricate, it's musically complex. I'm only just beginning, it seems, to get a feel after giving them all these albums 2 or 3 listens. It's very different sound-wise. It takes some getting into and used to. There's little or no guitar, a bass or lead guitar. It's led by sax, organ and drums. It's often very, very diverse styles. And it's going to take some time to get a real feel for these albums. The second reason is probably Peter Hammill. It's very much Hamill's project. He writes all the lyrics, most of the songs, the music. The more I hear and read them, the more I get them, but it's not easy. There are just so many of them. It's very dense, it's occasionally very deep. And for me, I'm not a lyrics person. It's not the lyrics that are the first thing to move me. Often, if there's no lyric sheet, I don't even maybe know what they're singing about. It's the sounds, the chords, the melodies that gives me the sort of feel, in the guts and in the heart about music. So, but for Van de Graaf generator and Peter Hammill, the lyrics are clearly very, very important. They do matter. The second thing is his singing voice. It's just, he can undoubtedly sing, got a huge range, but his style is dramatic, it's theatrical, it's portentous, it's overblown, it's bloated. It sounds to me like it's more akin to, the sort of musicals, Broadway musicals or West End musicals, which are definitely not my cup of tea. So I find his style, his singing style, and his voice, which he sings with received pronunciation, perfect diction, very posh, extremely English, and I always struggle with the idea of Englishness, but it makes it sound unnatural, it makes it difficult to listen to. I don't doubt his sincerity for 1 minute, not for 1 minute, but it does make it difficult for me. But anyway, so I'm not the best person to really review them, but I'm going to give it a go. And what I'm going to do is just talk through some of these 16 albums that I've been, and my impressions really, and I'm going to deal with them in the sort of phases that they came out in, and I'm going to split them between Van de Graaf generator albums and Peter Hammill solo albums, despite the fact that in many cases the same players played on both of them. So I've got to get cracking because this is going to run out and I'm going to really speed through this. the albums that I borrowed, I'm not going to cover, is this one, The Long Hello, which is a band project. It's without Peter Hammill. It's music from the band. Mildly interesting, a little bit middle of the road, really. Not really, I don't think, relevant to this exercise. Secondly, I haven't dealt with the live album, Vital, which came towards the end of this period. Nor have I dealt with this one, Time Vaults. Nice photo on the cover, but this is a sort of collection of stuff across a period from 71 to 75. And they're not studio quality recordings, so I haven't dealt with those three. But I'm going to start, and I'm putting them in order. So from their first phase, from 1969 to 72, there are 4 albums in this. My 4th one is their first album, The Aerosol Grey Machine. Mellow start, relatively easy listen compared to some Van de Graaf Generator albums. Some interesting instrumental passages, particularly on the last 3 tracks, Aquarian, Necromancer and Octopus. But generally a bit safe, a little bit dull, a bit restrained, not a great recording quality, so that's my least favourite in that period. My 3rd favourite was the follow-up to that, I think. The Least We Can Do Is Wave to Each Other. Lovely cover. Many of the VDGG albums have got great, for this period, got great covers. And this album, it's got a much more fuller sound. The sax and organ interplay starts to really make an impact. It's got a great ominous epic start with the song Darkness, and then the really pertinent song Refugees, which follows that. Again, I found Hamill singing really difficult on this. I found it difficult to listen to. My second listen a little bit easier, but I'd need to go back to this more. I love the themes, the sort of powerful dystopian apocalyptic themes. Some really interesting lyrics, but my 3rd favourite in that period. My 2nd favourite, H2HE, hydrogen to helium, which the chemistry of which is helpfully explained on the back. And this, it feels to me the band are really maturing from the previous albums. They're starting to, I'm really starting to appreciate Jackson's sax, Banton's keyboards, and particularly Evans' drums. I'm loving the drumming on Van de Graaf Generator. It really drives some of the music here. It's literally very dense. There's themes of loneliness set within a sort of sci-fi context. Yeah, nice album. And these albums, I think, this was their 3rd album, and it's my 2nd favourite from that period. My favourite from that period is the album Pawn Hearts. Again, another great cover with a chess theme. This came out at the similar time to their single Theme 1, which bizarrely went to the top of the charts in Italy and made them big stars in Italy and some other parts of Europe. It's a great catchy track. One of the only tracks not written by Hammill and the band. But Pawn Hearts, yeah, this opens with an epic song, Lemmings. The sort of theme, if there's a concept or a theme here, it seems to be about Nazism and Germany dealing with the aftermath of Nazism. I love the terrifying musical vocal passage, which is about 2/3 of the way through that song, Lemmings. Absolutely, yeah, terrifying. Then the next track, Man Erg, which is a sort of anagram, I think, of German. The band really come together, especially there's a middle passage where the band really let rip. Love that. And then the song Plague of Lighthouse Keepers, lots of musical and lyrical ideas. You know, I think would be a classic sort of grower if I give it a bit more listens. But that's my favourite album from their first period, Pawn Hearts. Then their second period, 3 albums in this period. My 3rd one is World Record. I had high hopes having listened to its predecessor, but I really couldn't stand Hamill's style on the opener, When She Comes. I thought it was awful. But then I do like the song Merglis 3, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, the Songwriters Guild, where Hammill actually plays some rudimentary lead guitar, interestingly, and there's some longer instrumental passages which are quite interesting. But that's my 3rd favourite from their second period. My second favourite, real good album, God Bluff. Really enjoyed this one. It's cohesive, as I say, it's enjoyable. I love the opener, Undercover Man. There's some real nice flute from David Jackson. The sax player also plays flute on occasion throughout these albums. I love the band rocking out at the end of Scorched Earth, and then there's a great intro with wailing sax on the track Arrow. So that's my second favourite from that period. My favourite from that period is the album Still Life. I love the opener, Pilgrims. It's got really subtle keyboards, up-front drumming, great lyrics marrying these sort of introspective and cosmic themes across all sorts of territory, ranging from personal relationships through to the meaning of life. Really, really good stuff, good songs, musically tight and mature. I think the vocals and the band marry together more successfully than many of their other albums. And it was great to hear a bass guitar on this when Hugh Banton puts his keyboards down, picks up a bass guitar on My Room. But this one's got all strong tracks, one of my favourites, Still Life. Then the last album, for this one, Hugh Banton, our keyboard player, and David Jackson, the sax player, left for, I don't know, it's family reasons or musical reasons or lack of commercial success reasons, I'm not sure what. But that radically changed the sound, and they brought in the guy whose name I've forgotten from String Driven Thing. I could look it up now, but I'd just waste time doing that. So with violin up front in the sound really changed the sound of it. Nice album actually, good sound. But only one from that period, and then following this album the band broke up for a long period, right through to they reformed in 2005. So moving on to Hamill's solo albums. I'm going to do these in order. There are 6 of these. My 6th and least favourite of these is Fool's Mate, another chess themed cover. This draws tracks from a sort of 4-year period, I think, but they're more straightforward, they're shorter songs, which might make it more accessible and easy to listen to, but I think the songs are weaker in general than the other albums. I do like the track Reawakening, and there's some Robert Fripp comes in and does a nice bit of noodling on the birds. So that's my 6th favourite, Fool's Mate. My 5th favourite, In Camera, with his awful photo of Peter Hammill. This is quite a different sound. There's a wider range of musicians brought in for this one. There's more mellotron. It's got a heavier sort of prog sound, which I think might be more accessible to prog fans, but I got a bit bored with the sound of this one, to be honest. And on this, the sort of theme is Hammill, although he's only 25, talking about sort of lost youth, you know, as if his youth was way behind him. But yeah, In Camera, my 5th favourite. My 4th favourite, Chameleon in the Shadow of the Night, another fantastic cover, a likeable album, maybe a bit too diverse, maybe a bit too sort of proggy for my taste. Some lovely lyrics to the track Slender Threads. Again, Hamill's sort of overdone posh singing puts me off a bit, but I love the track Rock and Roll, some lovely dirty saxophone playing. The last 2 tracks jarred with me a little bit, but I've got that as my number 4 for his solo stuff. My number 3, well, what a different album this is. I'm going to try and find this one somewhere. This is Nadia's Big Chance, where Peter Hammill imagines a 16-year-old punk rocker called Ricky Nadia, a nihilistic sort of attitude, and full of shorter, simpler songs, great lyrics, brilliantly delivered. Some of them really punky songs, which I love, which put the sort of quieter ballads a bit in the shade on this one. But it's just totally different to Van der Graaf Generator's other stuff. It sort of stands alone, really. And yeah, Johnny Rotten, Johnny famously mentioned a couple of the tracks on this album when interviewed in the early days of the Sex Pistols, and Hammill actually sounds like John Lydon a little bit on the track Birthday Special, bizarrely enough. But anyway, it's really different. I like it. It's my number 3, Nadia's Big Chance. My second favourite of these Hamill's solo albums is Over. This is definitely a Hammill solo album. It doesn't feel like a Van de Graaf Generator album. Great songs about the breakup of a relationship, some really sad, heartbreaking lyrics. He sings like a sort of angelic chorister on the track this side of the Looking Glass. And then he ends with a sort of, I think, really optimistic, nice song, Lost and Found, at the end. But this is a great album. Again, this is one I'm going to follow up and hopefully get into a little bit more. And then my favourite of all the Hammill solo albums is this one. Fantastic cover again. If I open it up for you. This is The Silent Corner and the Empty Stage. This one, it's got a real epic feel. It's strong tracks all the way through. Definitely sounds like a Van de Graaf Generator album to me. I love the track Wilhelmina, which is a song to a child about the challenges they're going to face ahead in growing up. I love Red Shift with its cosmic themes, and Randy California bizarrely makes a sort of appearance on that with some spacey guitar. And I just love, I love all the side two on this one, Red Shift, Rubicon, and then the sort of real manic musical passages in A Louse Is Not a Home. So that's my favourite, I think, of these. In general, what do I think? Really, really interesting themes lyrically. I'd like to get into it a little bit more. I think the more I get into it, the more I would overcome my prejudice against Hamill's voice and style. I think the themes about, Hammill feels like a man who's lost lost and lonely in a complex and ever-changing universe, and those sorts of themes are relevant to all of us, aren't they? So I'm thanks to Jimmy for lending me all this. Thanks to anyone who's watched it and it might spark an interest in following up what an incredible artist really Peter Hammill and Van de Graaf Generator are. Overall, my favourite four, my top two solo albums are Over and The Silent Corner and The Empty Stage, and my favourite two of the band albums are Still Life and God Bluff from their sort of second period, although Pawn Hearts would be a not too far behind in third. But thanks for listening. I hope all this video